Now, through the window over my shoulder, of course, in the last few days, was where the reindeer landed. And I appreciate they were a little bit early for Christmas, for those of you that are counting down the sleeps. But what a wonderful thing, both in our hospice on the Tickhill site and at some of our wards like Hazel and Hawthorne and Magnolia, to see the joy that those reindeer brought, not only for patients, including a lady who told us she was 100 years old, but also for our staff and so on. So thank you so much for organising that. Carrying on a small theme of celebration, I just want to shout out to Jessica Goodwin, who I understand has vaccinated at least 171 colleagues across the Rotherham Adult Mental Health Care Group. I did say last week when I vlogged about patient and carer voice, I'd talk a bit this week about our flu campaign. I'm delighted to say that we've hit the dizzy heights of 2,800 vaccinations. That is rather more than we've ever managed before. It's a fantastic achievement, not just by Jessica, but by Sam and Joe, by many people across the organisation. If you haven't been vaccinated yet, or you haven't told us that your GP has vaccinated you, please still reach out. We are keeping this going through the next few days before we pull up and begin planning for next year. Now, Steve Forsyth, our chief nurse, of course, is a Wolves fan, so league tables are not his favourite thing. There clearly is a league table on the screen as I'm talking. It's all ever so close. We're down to 2 decimal points. Obviously, if you're running corporate assurance, you've got a smaller team than operations, who appear to be really catching up. Among our 6 groups, it's clearly very, very close. I know people say to me, why do you keep banging on about the numbers? Well, if you are trying to cover a population and keep each other safe, then the numbers matter very much, don't they? So look, we struggle sometimes to celebrate in the NHS. We're so used to the bad news. I've got to be honest, I think we're going to end up among the 3, 4, 5 best NHS organisations in the country in terms of flu vaccination. But more importantly, that focus on people's well-being has been at the heart of our work. So big thanks, and let's get ready for doing it all again in 2025. I touched last week, as I say, on care opinion and hearing from our patients. I wanted to say something in this sort of second last vlog of the year about hearing your voice. And I'm not going to talk about the staff survey. Doubtless we'll get those results. You know we're going to move to a regular quarterly pulse survey, which is going to be at the very heart of the management process. But I wanted to reflect the conversations I've been having, the concerns I've heard from people about change happening too quickly, change happening without consultation, change feeling difficult, things feeling stressful. Now, I'm not about to say that none of those things will ever happen again, quite the opposite, but I want to acknowledge what people are saying and that people are being heard. As we go through 2025 and 2026, I guess there's maybe 3 things that we're going to need to keep in our mind as we begin to keep what's brilliant about Irish, but continue a process of change. One of those is that we've said for a couple of years now that we're looking for much greater consistency of how we do things. Consistency between, let's say, Scunthorpe and Rotherham, consistency between how we might look after someone as an older child and a younger adult. Consistency isn't standardisation or uniformity, but it does come with a presumption that we will do things the same way unless there's an extraordinarily good clinical reason for them to be done distinctly. And I know as we've implemented the changes to standardise our approach to the crisis pathway for older adults, that's been a very live conversation. So I suppose the thing we can do to manage the forward look on change is to begin to use things like learning half days to really develop quite a smart understanding of where some of our differences lie, and therefore anticipate where some of our change endeavours may fall. Second thing I suppose we have to do is to develop a Cander. I hope in these vlogs you feel I've talked to you about stuff, including stuff that hasn't happened yet or might happen. That candor needs to infuse all of our managers and leaders, doesn't it? So in the board, we have public papers. In CLE, Clinical Leadership Executive, we have papers. Our care group, SLTs. Often people say to me, well, can I share this with people? And invariably the answer is, of course you can. Talk about it. Talk about the possibilities. Talk about what might happen. Because change often feels abrupt or just in time because it's been planned for ages, but nobody talked to you. Nobody told you because they didn't want to trouble you until they were certain change was going to happen. So I don't want to create anxiety, but I think it's important we have an openness as managers and leaders about the things that might happen. And the third and final thing is this trust will never be all about money. And I will always use these vlogs to talk to you about the fact that money will be found for safety. But we do need to be honest with each other that the financial year ahead in 2025-26 will be objectively the tightest financial year in the history of the National Health Service. So we are going to have to be really choiceful and really thoughtful about, if you like, recycling the £225+ million that we have and make sure we are spending every penny in the best and smartest way. Shout out to those people who email me to protest about things we're spending money on and ask questions. I hope you feel you get an answer. But we should all be paying attention to whether we are spending the money that taxpayers give us in the best interests of our patients. That isn't about making this trust all about money, but it is about having candid and honest conversations. So when you disagree, when you're worried, when you're anxious, for goodness sake, say so, and let's make sure people are getting answers. And let's be honest when we disagree. It's possible for me, let's say, to hear something someone's saying to me, but still to be able to say, I've heard that, but I disagree. And that will be true of clinical leadership colleagues as well. So let's keep the feedback coming. Let's keep being honest with each other about when people feel heard and when they don't feel heard. And let's have a decent conversation as we go through 2025 about the changes that are inevitably going to happen in our NHS and in our organisation. It's not just the reindeer, it's also the flu. There's a lot of good stuff going on. And I'm off to look at 71 separate sets of Christmas decorations come Monday and work out which 4 might be the very best of our very best. Have a great weekend. Cheers.